You ever notice how the scariest monsters wear the kindest faces? It all began during Alia's second semester at the University of Nairobi. She was just 19, bright-eyed, driven, a girl who had left her rural hometown with dreams of becoming a lawyer. Her parents had poured their entire savings into her education, believing in her more than she believed in herself. And when she stepped onto that campus, she promised them she would make every second count. Everything was new: friends, hostels, the city life. But one person stood out more than the rest: Professor Brian Muneen. Tall, smooth-voiced, with sharp suits and a way of making each student feel like they mattered. He taught psychology with passion, cracking jokes that made even the driest theories seem alive. Girls swooned over him. Boys admired him. And Alia? She was captivated, at first by his brilliance, later by his charm. At first he simply complimented her assignments. "You write with depth," he'd say, handing back her essays with a warm smile. Then came extra credit invitations, after-class discussions, casual coffee offers. He always made it seem innocent. "I see potential in you, Alia," he said once as they sat in his office while the sun dipped behind the city skyline. "You think differently. You could be great if you're mentored right." Those words wrapped around her like a warm scarf. She felt seen, validated. And slowly something dangerous began to bloom: trust. But the trust turned into a trap. One Friday evening she got a message from him. "Need help organizing research papers? Come to my apartment. It's safe, promise." It didn't feel right, but she'd grown to admire him so much that questioning him felt disrespectful. His apartment was lavish. Too lavish for a university professor. The place smelled of cologne and freshly brewed coffee. He welcomed her in with a casual smile and a glass of juice already poured. "Relax, you're too tense," he laughed. "You're not on trial here." But the moment she took a sip, the room began to blur. Her body grew heavy. Her head swam. Her last clear memory was the sound of his voice, eerily calm, too calm, saying, "Just close your eyes. You're safe with me." She woke up hours later on the couch, clothes disheveled, her head throbbing. The air felt wrong. Her body told her something unspeakable had happened. And in that moment her world, so full of hope just days before, began to crack. But the real nightmare was only beginning. Because when she gathered the courage to speak out, she realized something worse. She wasn't his first victim. The days that followed were a blur of silence, shame, and sleepless nights. Alia tried to convince herself that maybe she'd misunderstood. Maybe it was all in her head. But the bruises, the gap in her memory, the twisted smirk he gave her in class the next day, all of it screamed otherwise. She stopped attending lectures. Her grades slipped. Friends noticed she was pulling away, but Alia didn't know how to explain a wound she couldn't name out loud. But one afternoon, as she sat in the library trying to focus, a girl slipped into the seat beside her. Nadia, a quiet, second-year student. She hesitated before whispering, "Did something happen with Professor Brian?" Alia's heart froze. "Why?" Nadia looked around nervously. "Because it happened to me too." That moment shattered everything. The monster wasn't just real, he was a repeat offender. Nadia told her how he'd lured her with promises of academic help, then turned manipulative, even threatening. She tried reporting it once, but the dean had shut it down. "He's a respected faculty member." "You must be mistaken," they told her. Alia felt sick. Not just because of what happened to her, but because the system, the very one meant to protect her, had become his accomplice. But something in Alia snapped that day. She didn't want to be another silent story. Together with Nadia, she began gathering testimonies, quiet whispers from girls who had experienced the same pattern. A smile. An invitation. A drink. Then nothing but shame and fear. Within weeks they had 6 stories, 6 girls too scared to speak alone, but brave enough to stand together. They took the evidence to a young female journalist known for covering institutional abuse. The journalist, Amina, was fierce, and unlike the university board, she listened. Her article dropped like a bombshell. Behind the smile, the predator professor of Nairobi University. It hit every major outlet in the country. Screens buzzed with the story. Protests broke out on campus. Students carried signs that read, "We believe her," and "Protect, don't cover up." Professor Brian was suspended, then investigated, and soon after arrested. But even as justice began to stir, Alia didn't feel victorious. She still woke up some nights gasping, still walked faster when someone followed her too closely. Trauma doesn't disappear when headlines do. But she wasn't broken. Not anymore. Months later, she stood on a small campus stage, giving a speech for a women's safety initiative she had helped launch. Her voice trembled, but it was strong. I was betrayed by someone I trusted. But I found something more powerful than fear: truth and those willing to speak it. If you've been hurt, you are not alone. The crowd erupted in applause. Because the girl who once walked into a predator's trap had become the voice that would make sure he never hurt another soul again. If this story moved you or you've experienced something similar, know that your voice matters. Speak up. Reach out. Share this video to help others find courage in the silence. Let's make sure no predator hides behind power ever again.